Jaxon Hale leaned back on his elbows, breathless, heart still racing. The room around them hummed softly, its curved walls pulsing with dim blue light, a soothing rhythm that matched the afterglow of what had just happened. Across from him, Sylari sat upright, her violet skin catching the ambient glow, silver hair cascading down her back like liquid starlight. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. She stared at him with an expression that wasn't confusion or fear, but something ancient. Something formal. Jaxon frowned. "Everything okay?" She blinked slowly. "You pulled out." He let out a chuckle. "Yeah. I mean, sorry, that's just how we do it where I'm from. Safety first, you know?" Her gaze sharpened. "You don't understand." There was a beat of silence, then a deep metallic gong echoed through the room. Jaxon sat up. What the hell was that? Before she could respond, a voice boomed over the comm system, cold, official, in multiple alien dialects before it settled on standard Terran. "Violation of Article 7, abandonment during ritual bonding. Human male Jaxon Hale is hereby summoned for immediate judgment under Zethri mating law. Options: life bond acceptance or genetic seizure." Jaxon's blood ran cold. What the hell is genetic seizure? Sylari stood, shoulders stiff, expression unreadable. "It means they take your DNA. Permanently. For state-controlled reproduction. You'll never own your own genes again." "Wait, what?" He stumbled to his feet. This was a cultural exchange dinner, with intimacy after dessert. "You never said anything about bonding laws." She turned to him, finally showing emotion, guilt, maybe regret. "I didn't want to scare you away. I hoped you would stay." Before he could process that, the door slid open with a hiss, revealing two armored guards flanking a tall woman whose expression could cut titanium. "High Enforcer Lissatel," Sylari whispered. "We're out of time." Jaxon raised his hands instinctively. Okay, let's just talk." "You've violated the sanctity of the Zethri bonding ritual," Lissatel declared. "You've insulted the most sacred tenet of our reproductive code." "I didn't know," Jaxon said, backing up slightly. "Where I'm from, pulling out is considered respectful." The enforcer narrowed her gaze. "On Kylina Prime, it is abandonment. An affront. And by law, it demands restitution." Sylari stepped forward. "I request postponement." He acted from ignorance, not cruelty. Lissatel's silver eyes didn't flinch. "Ignorance is no defense. You knew the law, and you chose silence." "He's not Zethri," Sylari snapped. "He's human." That single word, human, carried weight in the room. A mix of novelty, danger, and condescension. The enforcer turned to Jaxon. "You have 24 standard hours. You will either complete the bond through permanent mating or surrender your genome for extraction and conversion. There is no appeal." She left without another word. The guards followed, sealing the door behind them. Silence returned. Jaxon dropped onto the edge of the bed, running a hand through his hair. "This is a nightmare. I didn't plan for it to end this way," Sylari said quietly. He looked up. "So, all that back there. Was it real? Or just ritual?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the wall and tapped a screen. A genetic interface appeared, displaying a glowing double helix with his name already attached. "Once physical union occurs," she said, "Zethri females undergo irreversible hormonal imprinting. We don't choose our mates with logic. We bond, permanently. And now I'm what? Your property." Sylari turned slowly, pain flashing across her face. "Not property. Partner. But only if you choose it willingly." He stood. "And if I don't? I get my DNA ripped out and used for what, breeding programs?" "Yes," she said without flinching. "Sterilization and replication. You'll be remembered as a donor." He stared at her. "You should have warned me." She stepped closer. "I wanted you to choose me, not because of duty or pressure, but because you felt what I felt." "I did feel something," he admitted. "But not enough to be sentenced to eternal marriage after one night." She didn't respond. The silence felt like a wall between them, taller than before. Jaxon turned away. I need to speak with Ambassador Reese. Earth needs to be informed. Silari nodded. You'll find him in the diplomatic wing. But know this, if you tell them everything, you risk war. He looked over his shoulder. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, she said softly. Zethri don't separate love and law. To them, you're already mine. And if you reject that, they'll see it as an act of interspecies cruelty. Her words sank in. Jaxon wasn't just caught in an awkward misunderstanding, he was teetering on the edge of a galactic scandal. I didn't sign up for this, he muttered. But you touched me like you did, she said, her voice nearly a whisper. They stood there, locked in a moment of confusion, heat, and fear. Then, quietly, she said, sleep. You'll need your strength tomorrow. He didn't respond as she walked into the adjoining room, the door sealing silently behind her. Alone now, Jaxon sat on the bed, staring at the faint glow of his own DNA rotating on the monitor, spinning, claimed, and ticking toward a choice he wasn't ready to make. And somewhere deep inside him, he wasn't sure which outcome scared him more. The diplomatic wing of Vanera's heart didn't feel diplomatic today. Jaxon Hale sat rigid in the cold steel chair outside Ambassador Reese's office, his jaw clenched, hands locked together like he was bracing for impact. His thoughts churned like a reactor on the edge of meltdown. Behind the frosted glass, raised voices filtered through. Reese was already arguing with a Zethri liaison, and from the sound of it, things were not going well. Commander Hale. The ambassador's voice finally called out. Inside. Now. Jaxon stepped in. Reese stood by the display screen, sleeves rolled up, eyes red. Across from him, the alien liaison stared with glowing, pupilless eyes, her fingers flexing with restrained disgust. You're in deep, Jax, Reese said without pleasantries. Article 7 isn't just some tribal custom. It's encoded law. DNA bonding is legally binding in Zethri territory. You may have just triggered a full diplomatic review. I didn't consent to any of that, Jaxon shot back. I was following my instincts, not violating some sacred contract. You were in her space. You played by their rules. Reese pointed toward the alien liaison. And the law doesn't care what humans call instincts. To them, you rejected a permanent bond. That's desertion. The Zethri envoy tilted her head. Commander Hale's fluid was expelled outside the sacred canal. That alone voids the spiritual encoding of the act. Under our constitution, it is considered a violent denial. A violent denial? Jaxon spat. I didn't punch her. I just spared yourself, the alien said with a quiet hiss. That is worse. Reese stepped between them. Enough. I've been trying to negotiate a deferral, but they've invoked the biological protection clause. You've got 20 hours before enforcement. What does enforcement really mean? Jaxon asked, not bothering to hide the edge in his voice. Reese sighed. You either accept the bond and live as her mate on Kylena Prime, or they'll extract your genetic material entirely. You'll be sterilized and filed into a state archive. Legally erased. Jaxon let that sink in. Sterilization. Erasure. He wasn't just facing consequences, he was facing annihilation of autonomy. Reese added, there's no appeal. Not here. Not in time. A beat passed. I want to talk to her, Jaxon said quietly. Back in Silari's quarters, the tension had changed shape. The raw emotion from the night before had cooled into something tighter, harder. She didn't stand to greet him when he entered. She sat near the glowing window, the swirling stars of Kylena's orbit reflecting in her pale eyes. I asked you not to go to them, she said softly. And I asked you to warn me before binding me to alien law with your canal of secrets. A flicker of amusement touched her lips, but it faded quickly. I didn't warn you because I didn't want to scare you away, she said. I liked the way you looked at me. Like I wasn't some cold diplomat. Like I was real. He hesitated, then sat across from her. You are real. But that doesn't mean I'm ready to sign away my life. She finally met his gaze. I didn't want you to sign anything. I just wanted you to stay. Jaxon looked down at his hands. They told me what happens if I don't. I know. Silence hung between them, heavy and unfinished. You imprinted, he asked at last. Silari nodded. It's involuntary. Biochemical. Once physical bond is achieved, Zethri females undergo neurological restructuring. It's irreversible. That's why our law is so strict. So, you feel something real for me. But it might be forced. I don't know, she said, almost a whisper. I feel it anyway. He exhaled. This is insane. She reached across the table, gently placing her hand over his. You felt something too. I know you did. I did, he admitted, his voice low. But feelings don't equal forever. Not where I come from. Maybe that's why your kind runs from it. He didn't argue. Couldn't. She added, I know I tricked you. I won't ask you to marry me. But I also can't tell them to let you go. They won't understand. What if we find another way? Her head tilted slightly. Let's say I agree to the bond, he continued. But not by their terms. Not their ceremony. Ours. A third way. Something both species recognize. You'd do that. I'd consider it, he said carefully. But not because of their threat. Because of you. Her eyes shimmered. A tone buzzed on the wall. A summons. Lysatel's voice filtered in. The tribunal begins at dawn. The accused must appear with his bonded. Prepare. Jaxon stood. Looks like they want an answer sooner than planned. He looked at her one last time before walking to the door. Jaxon, she called softly. He paused. If you had finished inside me, she said, we would already be joined. No questions. No law. Just us. He didn't turn back. But he did say, I didn't know. And now. I wish I had. The door sealed between them with a quiet hiss. In his quarters, Jaxon sat alone, staring at the empty glass of water in his hand. His DNA, his future, his choices, they all felt like they belonged to someone else now. But tomorrow, at the tribunal, he'd get a chance to speak. And he intended to do it in a language neither side expected, truth. The tribunal chamber was carved from obsidian steel, its walls seamless, its silence brutal. 3 Zethari judges stood like statues behind a floating platform, their ceremonial robes reflecting starlight. Below them, an amphitheater of onlookers murmured in multiple languages, ambassadors, scientists, cultural observers. The entire Concord watched. Commander Jaxon Hale stepped forward onto the center dais, spine straight, fists unclenched by will alone. He wore his diplomatic uniform, clean, crisp, defiant. Next to him stood Silari, radiant and tense, her hair coiled into ceremonial knots, her body wrapped in deep violet silk. Across the room stood High Enforcer Lysatel. Her gaze was colder than yesterday. She spoke without emotion. Commander Jaxon Hale, you are accused of abandoning the ritual of sacred union after initiating physical communion with Zethri diplomat Silari of House Yevon. As per Article 7 of Matriarchal Code, you face one of 2 paths, life bond acceptance, or genetic seizure. The judges nodded as one. Proceed. Jaxon didn't blink. Before you judge, I want the right to speak for myself. Granted, the head judge said, voice like flowing gravel. Jaxon took a breath. I didn't know the consequences of my actions. That's true. I accept responsibility for that ignorance. But you're not judging a predator. You're judging a man caught between 2 worlds, yours and mine. Murmurs rippled through the amphitheater. Silari watched him, unreadable. In human culture, he continued, intimacy is not always permanent. Sometimes, it's discovery. Sometimes, it's just closeness without commitment. That's not disrespect. It's freedom. For both sides. Lysatel spoke sharply, your freedom broke our sacred law. No, Jaxon said. It broke your expectation. Not a warning. Not a ceremony. Just an unspoken trap with a smile. The room quieted. The judges glanced at each other. He turned to Silari. But I don't believe you meant it to be a trap. Her expression trembled, barely, but it was enough. I didn't, she said aloud. I let myself hope. That he would choose me, not be forced to. Lysatel stepped forward. Hope does not erase law. Silari, did you or did you not undergo imprinting after copulation? Silari nodded slowly. Yes. Then the bond exists. Whether the male accepts it is irrelevant. His violation remains. Jaxon took a step toward the platform. Then let me ask you something. If this law is meant to protect the bond, where is her choice in it? Silence. Not even breathing. If she's chemically bound, isn't it your duty to ensure she isn't hurt more? By watching her partner erased, sterilized, used like a vial on a shelf. The head judge leaned forward. And your solution, Commander? Jaxon turned to Silari. Consent. From both sides. You said you didn't want a prisoner. You wanted someone who saw you. Someone who chose. She nodded once, eyes soft now. He faced the tribunal again. I will honor the bond. Not because you demand it. But because she matters. And if she wants me, then I'll be hers. Not by decree, but by vow. One of the judges whispered something to the others. After a pause, the lead voice spoke again. This would require a reclassification, a personal union under dual sovereignty. Never before requested by an off-worlder. Jaxon gave a thin smile. Guess I'm full of firsts. The gallery murmured. The ruling was unprecedented, neither rejection nor surrender, but a shared declaration. Both species' traditions would recognize the bond, but no physical ownership would be claimed. Equal terms. A new precedent. Lysatel's face tightened. You undermine our structure. You offer love as if it were a negotiation. Jaxon didn't look away. No. I offer it as truth. And I meant what I said last night. I wish I'd known what this meant sooner, because maybe I would have stayed anyway. The judges stood in unison. Then let the record show, the tribunal accepts this union under extraordinary exception. No genetic seizure will occur. The bond is reaffirmed, on mutual terms. Silari exhaled sharply, relief flooding her features. Lysatel bowed stiffly. The matriarchy will honor this compromise. But understand our patience with human carelessness grows thin. Jaxon inclined his head. Then teach us better. Don't ambush us with rules no one explains. She left in silence, robes trailing like shadows. The chamber emptied, leaving only the pair standing together in the pale light of the tribunal seal. Silari reached for his hand. You really meant it. I meant all of it, Jaxon said. But now I need to ask you something. She tilted her head. Was it real? Or was it your biology talking? She hesitated. It began in my body, but it stayed in my heart. That was enough. Jaxon leaned in, resting his forehead against hers. Then let's start again. No secrets. No expectations. She smiled. But next time, finish properly. He laughed. Only if you promise not to summon another tribunal. I make no such promise, she whispered, lips brushing his. This time, there was no judgment. Just choice. And this time, they would finish what they started together. The view from Silari's stateroom shimmered with quiet brilliance. Kylina Prime rotated below them, its surface bathed in gold and blue, wrapped in swirling clouds. The moment should have felt distant, diplomatic. Instead, it felt intimate. Jaxon stood at the curved window, half-dressed, a mug of something too sweet and too alien warming his palm. Behind him, the faint sound of silk sliding across skin signaled Silari's presence. She approached without a word and wrapped her arms around his waist. You haven't said much since the ruling, she murmured against his back. I'm still waiting for someone to knock on the door and tell me they changed their mind, he said. They won't. The ruling is final. And you are mine. He turned to face her. Ours. That was the deal. She smiled, soft, but real. Yes. Ours. He took a sip, then set the mug down. Your law almost turned me into a specimen in a lab. And your law almost let you walk away like nothing happened. He gave her a slow nod. Fair point. They stood in silence for a beat, and Jaxon noticed something different in her now. Not just affection, ease. As if the weight she'd carried was finally gone. He brushed his fingers along her cheek. So, what happens now? You take me back to your homeworld and parade me around as your strange, rule-bending human? Silari tilted her head. You'll attend a bonding confirmation ceremony, non-binding, just tradition. There will be poetry. And food that may burn your tongue. Delightful, he muttered. Do I get to wear something ridiculous? Bare chest. Gold cuffs. No pants. He blinked. You're joking. She grinned. Not even a little. He sat on the edge of the bed, groaning. This is what I get for not reading the cultural manual. Silari joined him, legs folded beneath her. There's more. Of course there is. Your DNA has been elevated in classification. Technically, you're now a protected donor under Zethri law. That means your genetic line is considered sacred for interspecies compatibility. Jaxon stared. Wait, are you saying I'm galactically valuable now? She shrugged. Rare. Coveted. Fertility councils will be drafting proposals. Some will ask for interviews. One may request tissue samples. His face fell. Samples? I just got out of forced extraction. This is entirely voluntary, she said with mock innocence. You can even charge licensing fees. He laughed despite himself. That is so deeply wrong, it feels perfect. She leaned closer. But only one bond was sacred. Only one imprint was made. He met her gaze. And I'm not sharing. Their lips met again, not frantic this time, but full of promise. The kind that didn't need rituals or rulings to feel real. A soft chime interrupted them. The ship's AI voice followed. Ambassador Reese requests Commander Hale's presence in Central Hall. Topic: Joint Concord press briefing. Jaxon groaned. And here comes the fallout. Silari stood, brushing her hands down her dress. You'll be fine. Just avoid the phrase pull-out during the press conference. He pointed. That's not funny. It's a little funny. The central hall gleamed under crystalline lights, ringed with Concord flags and translator drones. 100 reporters hovered behind gravelines, lenses spinning. At the front, Ambassador Reese stood next to the Zethri First Matron, her height imposing, her smile politically neutral. Jaxon joined them at the podium, still adjusting the ornate collar Silari insisted he wear. Reese handed him a brief datapad. Read it, the ambassador asked under his breath. Skimmed the beginning. Got bored at the legalese. Typical. The first matron spoke first. The union between Commander Hale and Envoy Silari marks an unprecedented event in interspecies relations. It proves that even ancient laws may bend to mutual understanding. We recognize the value of consent. And choice. Applause. Brief, but respectful. Reese stepped forward. Earth thanks the matriarchy for honoring the bond, and for not liquefying our officer. We consider this resolution a milestone not just for cultural sensitivity, but for diplomacy led by empathy. Then it was Jaxon's turn. He stared into the sea of recording lenses. Cleared his throat. I didn't mean to cause a diplomatic incident, he began. I really didn't. But I also didn't expect one night of connection to mean everything to anyone. He paused. Turns out, it did. To her. To me. And apparently, to the galaxy. Laughter stirred the crowd. I learned something the hard way. Intimacy means different things to different people. But meaning? That's universal. What started as a misunderstanding became something honest. He looked directly into the nearest camera. So yeah, I'm bonded. Not because I had to, but because I chose to. The flash of lights drowned out the end of his words. Later that night, the press quieted. The diplomats drifted away. And Jaxon stood once again in Silari's suite, undoing the stiff ceremonial cuffs from his wrists. She emerged from the shadows behind him, wearing a simple wrap of dark fabric. You survived, she said. Barely. I almost quoted a Terran love song by accident. Which one? Doesn't matter, he said, turning. I'd never live it down. She slid closer. No more speeches. No more rulings. Just you and me. He reached for her, pulling her close. No laws left to break, he said, voice low. She smiled. Then break something else. This time, when he touched her, it wasn't ceremony. And when they finished together, Unspoken and complete, no alarm sounded. No tribunal summoned him. Only silence. And the rhythm of two hearts finally in sync.